Hello. Welcome to yet another episode of the Small Bear Show. Um, my name is Alex S. Johnson, aka a small bear. There is an origin story to that, but I'm not going to spend, our vital, time that we have on Earth to talk about that because our very special guests are none other than Puma, Perl, and Richard Modiano. And let me tell you, these are some cultural and literary heavyweights. And I mean that, that Puma, just for an example, has read at the Whitney Biennial, which is something, I mean, you think of like Gaga as in her meat dress, right? That is culturally iconic. Um, Richard was the executive director of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center in Venice Beach, California, between I think 2010 and 2019, I believe. And we know one another through um, our close dear friend Ellen Mabey, who was responsible for basically our being, you know, our knowing one another. In fact, Puma emailed me 2 days ago and asked how she could contribute to the Ellen Mabey Tribute Anthology. So I'm very honored to be editing that and curating it and publishing it for my own imprint, which is called Nocturnicorn Books. And we've featured Richard in the past um, in a book called I'll show the people. Um, this is called White and White, a literary tribute to Bauhaus, and it's an absolutely unique book because it features, among other among other people, Carrie Lee Chrome, the founder of the Runaways, and the woman who wrote, songs like "Waiting for the Night," "California Paradise," "Secrets." It's a good friend of mine. We've collaborated actually. We had David J. Haskins himself, the man who wrote Bela Lugosi's Dead. We have, Caitlin R. Kiernan, who was the world, fantasy award-winning author, considered one of the great masters of weird fiction. Um, John Shirley, who wrote the screenplay to the original Crow, 1994. We have Jarbo, formerly of Swans, Ellen Mabey, Rick Lupert, Mark Olmsted, Susie Kaplan Olmsted. Um, it's just an amazing book, and I was so honored to be able to put it together. The foreword was written by Emily Frank. Emily Frank was a contributor, and there's a whole origin story to how and we could talk about that too. And in the Dear Bela chapbook, which came out in 1998, and so that's a very, very interesting kind of synchronicity that I had no idea. In fact, I'd had Rick Lupert was a contributor to my Leonard Cohen book that I put out like 2016 or so. But I had no idea until fairly recently about Dear Bela, and it seems really interesting that there's this kind of thread. We've got the Beats, heavily influenced punk rock, also heavily influenced people like, David J., and certainly some of the Bauhaus songs like Kick in the Eye that's basically eyeball kicks, right? It's Jack Kerouac. It's on the road, right? And Bela Lugosi's Dead is echoed in the original poem that he wrote for the Junk Merchants. And that's a literary tribute to William S. Burroughs. And both Puma and Richard and just a who's who list of luminaries in the beat and post-beat tradition are contributors, including Ken Goffman, aka Are You Serious? Ron Whitehead is a good friend of mine. Um, we have, Graham Masterton, who wrote the Manitou and Rules of Duel with Burroughs himself. Richard knew Burroughs and Ginsberg, and Mark Olmsted was a protege of Ginsberg. And so all these voices who came together, and also, Carrie Lee Crome was, you know, um, very, very much inspired by Burroughs. And so all these people coming together. Another really interesting fact, and Ellen maybe is part of this as well. Another really, really interesting fact, kind of historically interesting fact, is that one of my collaborators that I'm working on a film now with is a woman named Nicole H. Six. She is the daughter of Nikki Six from Motley Crue, and she is an exceptionally talented woman. And in fact, was there's a she's also a contributor to the Burroughs tribute, and there's another connection level of connection as well because her dad, Nikki Six, was also influenced by Burroughs and wrote the book The Heroin Diaries, and said that Motley Crue was basically a punk rock band. So I'd like to get started. First, I'd like Puma, if you could sort of introduce yourself and tell the people about you and your work.
I just very briefly,
Yeah,
I'm I'm a poet, writer. I'm front woman for the Puma Pearl band. We have a recent album out, myself and musician Joe Stabnick, that puts a rock and roll beat behind my poetry called Under Tenement Skies. And recently I've been focusing on writing a lot of essays for Substack.
yeah,
So that was kind of stretching in a different direction. But I do have five solo collections, which possibly the only one in print is the last one published by Beyond Baroque Press,
yeah.
days before and after. The one before that, Retrograde, which had a definite Velvet Underground theme, as we were talking,
Nice.
went out of print because the publisher closed. So that's enough about me. And I am New York City based.
You're extremely New York City based, and you
Very
and you and you and you wrote that great poem about Jim Carroll, who was one of I love Jim Carroll.
on the day that he died. Yeah,
Yeah, I adore. I mean, in fact, like I probably read Four Centuries more times than I've read any other book, right?
it's a favorite. You
And then Richard Modiano, if you could say some words about your work.
Well, I I probably am. I write poetry. I write prose. Uh, I lived in New York City for a number of years. My family was originally from New York City, and they moved out to Los Angeles for various reasons. So I have a strong connection to New York City, and I lived there for a number of years. And I used to go back and forth between New York City and San Francisco on the Greyhound bus on Highway 80, and then I'd come from San Francisco down to Los Angeles and go back again. So I did that for decades, and yeah, my I guess I spend as much time writing poetry as now doing reviews and writing appreciations of other artists that I admire and who I think should have some recognition. And yeah, that's about all I have to say.
Okay, as well as I need to mention that Richard is a recipient of the Joe Hill Award, and is a labor poet, is a member of the Industrial Workers of the world, the Wobblies,
Yeah.
and was involved. But you did something with I forgive me, I don't have it on the tip of my tongue, but it starts with poetry, and you and Emily Frank worked together on I it's an organization that's on the tip of my
Oh,
tongue.
it was Valley Contemporary Poets.
Valley Contemporary Poets, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, we were on the board of directors of that. Yeah.
As well as Richard published a book called The Forbidden Lunchbox with Iris Berry's press, the Punk Hostage Press.
I do editing for Iris now, and
Oh wow, cool.
yeah, I've edited a few of her books. Um, there's a sort of a backlog. Punk Hostage Press had a backlog due to Iris's commitment to take care of her brother, and that has been wrapped up. So all of those books that are in the pipeline are going to see print very soon.
Okay, that's excellent news. That's really great. I just wanted to update you both on the so Richard, we'd been talking with Ellen about trying to get in touch with Exene Cervenka and John Doe, and actually because in a very characteristic Ellen Mabey way, she deferred wanting to contact Exene herself, even though Exene would be, I'm sure, would be thrilled, right, to hear from her.
Mhm.
Fortunately, we also have a mutual friend named Lisa Bennington Love, formerly Lisa Vicious. And Exene and she had worked together, and actually, Exene blurbed her one of her books. So Lisa said that she would get in touch with Exene about the Ellen Mabey book. So that's really, really cool. This is another interesting connection. I think that Puma is actually knows you know Zachary Jean Betts, right?
No.
Zachary Jean Betts.
Oh, yeah, I met him in Prague when he was living there, actually. I think
Yeah,
in Detroit now.
and that's
Oh,
another one of these like amazing, almost cosmically supernatural coincidences because here's the deal, right? So my okay, so my partner, Aaliyah Celeste Williams, aka Pickles, lives in a rural area of Michigan called Monroe, Michigan. About 10 or 15 minutes away is Natasha Lynn Nichols. She just recently changed her name back to her maiden name, Nichols. And she is also a contributor and a more recent contributor to my imprint. And her boyfriend is Zachary Gene Betts. Now,
okay.
so
Yeah.
so Zachary met actually introduced David J. Haskins from Bauhaus to Anton Newscomb from the Brian Jonestown Massacre in Prague. So, I mean, it's wild, huh? That's
It
just,
is. Okay, so here's something else that's
yeah,
funny. Zachary is somehow friends with David J. from
right.
back,
Yeah,
and he messaged me one day and he said, I'm going to come to New York and see David J. He's performing with just his own little trio at, got the name of the club, Pianos, I think. Would you go
yeah,
with him?
yeah,
I'll treat you. And then he wound up not coming and giving me both tickets. So I went. And
yeah,
I had never met David J before, but he
yeah,
did a song about Bowie that was so much like my David Bowie poem that I wrote the day he died. So
yeah.
I told David about it. He said, oh, please send me that poem. And I sent it to him, and we struck up a friendship through that.
That's beautiful. That's really
That's from
beautiful.
Prague to Detroit to
In
New York.
in in
Yeah.
in fact, okay, here's another cosmic coincidence. David and Zachary are collaborating on a nonfiction prose piece about how they how they came up with the day that David Bowie died, the song that you're referring to.
Yes,
And
which is also the name of my poem.
right, oh my God. And
Yes.
so and David is had previously given me permission to publish this, the day that David Bowie died in this and so we have The Junk Merchants, right? A literary tribute to William S. Burroughs, which is about at this point is about roughly 777 pages long. And then our next thing that we've been working on, the only thing that's holding it up is Zachary and David. And I'm not going to say, hey, David J. Haskins, could you speed up the process of collaborating with Zachary? Well, he's in the studio doing amazing things with Zachary, and Natasha gets regular updates. It's just so weird though, because all
Mine is
these,
actually the night that David Bowie died.
there
This
was the
is
night, yeah, the
is
night.
the
So yours was the night that David Bowie died. His was the day that David Bowie died, and it would not have happened, in the same way if not for Zachary. So there's so many coincidences that are like seem like almost like this cosmic narrative is shaping us, bringing us together. I don't know. I mean, I know that sounds woo-woo, but
no,
Well,
I
no, there, you talked about Dear Bela. Let me tell you about this is another cosmic coincidence.
yeah,
And this came about because one day I was in a bookstore and I saw a book called the Bela Lugosi Encyclopedia, and it was basically a list of information about Bela Lugosi. And so I was paging through it, and one of the lists was of Bela Lugosi's residences in the United States from when he arrived in 1927 to his death in 1956. So I read through it, and the last address was address on Harold Way. I forget the number. And I said, Harold Way, that's familiar to me.
yeah,
I took out my pocket address book and I saw it was the very apartment that was Lugosi's last address where he died
yeah.
was where the poet Brendan Constantine was living.
Wow.
oh, friends.
Brendan is living there. And so I told Brendan this. And word got around, and then what happened was I forget whose idea it was originally, but we all decided we were going to meet at Brendan's. Yeah, that's it. We were
Yeah,
going to meet at
this is this
Brendan's,
is
and
this is from
we were going to write poems about Bela Lugosi. And we had a list of poets that were going to come there at different times. And yeah, and
yeah,
one of the we couldn't get everybody. For example, the reason we couldn't get Viggo Mortensen was because he was in New Zealand making Lord of the Rings.
right, yeah. Just a little thing
But
like that. Yeah.
and so and so what happened was when we gathered at Brendan's one night, he had Dracula on VHS. He put Dracula on, turned off the sound, and we played Bauhaus. Bela Lugosi is dead, and we wrote our poems. And the title Dear Bela, I found that title myself because there was a big encyclopedic biography of Bela Lugosi written by a philosophy professor. It was called The Count.
Yeah.
And one of the things in it was when Bela Lugosi went into rehab because of his morphine addiction,
Yeah.
made big headlines. And at that time, it was considered a horrible scandal. So um, one of the people that reached out to him was Frank Sinatra.
Oh,
Wow.
really?
Wow.
Yeah. Frank Sinatra sent him a letter with a check for $1,000. And it was a very brief letter. And it said, Dear Bela, stick with it. You're a cinch to win.
Oh, nice.
Thank you so much for so many hours of wonderful entertainment.
Wow.
Your
Oh,
pal Frank Sinatra
that's
with
beautiful.
$1,000 check.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, just to
Yeah.
throw in one more little coincidence, you mentioned the Brian Jonestown massacre, which
Yeah.
my friend who I saw for the first time recently after many years, writer Tony O'Neill, he used to play keyboards for
Oh,
them.
wow.
Yes,
Oh,
way,
wow.
way back. Yes. And I hadn't seen Tony for quite some years, and he had a book release party as a new book published by New West Press. So
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
for
Yeah. I used to work with some people who worked with Bomp Records. I think they put out Brian Jonestown Massacre for a while. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, we've got Jarbo. Okay. Jarbo. Isn't that amazing? I think it's amazing. Anyway, so for Jarbo contributed both to the Bauhaus and to the Burroughs book. Anyway, so wow, yeah, um I want to ask you both because we have all these I mean culturally I hate the word. I know that Emily Frank is always on my case when I say icon. She says you're not using it right, but I mean it when I say icon. I mean in the archetypal spiritual sense. And I know like with Iris Berry, right? With her poetry, when she talks about these landmarks, in LA, for example, Man's Chinese Theater, or her piece for about the Beat Hotel, when she's talking about the long, long trailer, right, which was used in that movie with Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. What I mean by icons is Lou Reed, Nico, um, Bela Lugosi, Ellen Mabey, they're William S. Burroughs, right? They're spiritual beings, they're and David J. Haskins. They're far more than just, although they rock, the shades. I mean, David J. with his just, stock still, like, focusing on laying down that pulse, you know, for doom 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 Lugosi's dead. It gives you shivers, right? That's what I'm talking about because it's sort of like a direct connection between us and the numinous. And so I think so I want to talk about Ellen Mabey because she is the reason why we know one another. We all know one another.
Well, I can.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, you
Yeah,
know how her name Ellen Mabey came about this way. There was a cafe called Cafe Iguana in North Hollywood, and they had an open reading night. The guy that ran it was Tommy Anello, and Tom had a each night of the week he had an open mic for something or another, right?
yeah.
Sometimes it was poetry, sometimes it was stand-up comedy and music and so on. So a number of people used to go to that, and Ellen used to go to that, and she signed up one night for the open reading. She just signed her name Ellen, and Tom was reading off the names, and all you folks going to read, and let me hear it. And Ellen, and he said, and please identify yourself. And so, Joe Schmo, whoever. And then she said, Ellen, maybe. And then that name stuck. That's the origin of Ellen Maybe.
That's awesome.
I
And
also
and
always yeah.
go ahead, Puma. Well, so that's the origin. And by the way, this is where we all got to know Viggo Mortensen because there were two venues that he used to read at in those days, the Iguana and the Onyx. And our mutual friend S.A. Griffin became friends with him when he read at the Onyx.
Wow.
And I knew him from when he read at Cafe Iguana. So he loved Ellen, and we all thought she was great because she had absolutely no agenda, no pretension. Her poetry was already remarkably polished, craft wise, and at the same time, it had a lot of heart. there. So, and it's really, sometimes, you can work so much on the craft that it becomes cold and lifeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
if you do that, I mean, it might sound, oh, that's perfect, but you know,
Right.
I'm unmoved. But Ellen never had that problem. She brought both of them together. So that's what made her a stellar poet, and she's
Yeah.
still a poet for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's how I know Puma. Well, I didn't know Puma back in the day. I mean, I didn't know, and just recently I've been because um because I was involved with with Iris Berry and Renee Diedrich with the Dirty Girls Collective, and so I got permission from Iris to actually by putting her piece on the Beat Hotel into the Junk Merchants is actually it's 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 the first proper representation of her. It's the first proper representation of that piece because it was edited, and I don't mind saying it. You know, it was abysmally, the book was abysmally done. I mean, it was the title, on the spine was printed upside down.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
well, it was.
right.
Let me tell you a story about this.
Yeah.
So, I Renee contacted me when I was director of Beyond Baroque and wanted to
Yeah.
have a publication reading. So I
Yeah.
found a date, everything was ready. We did all the publicity, right?
Yeah.
All the poets showed up. Renee showed up and she didn't have the book.
Yeah.
The book had not been printed yet.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm not
perfect.
making this up.
I know,
I
I
know
know,
that
I know you're
because I
not
said I
making it
think
up,
I already
Richard.
knew
Yeah,
about this.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I don't mean I'm not going to waste oxygen talking about Renee, but
Yeah.
I am going to say that I was so she wanted me to, apparently there was talk of money, um, but she had me tote around the book once it had been published. She didn't offer me a copy. She asked me to to edit it after Rain Dog. Apparently, she tried to corral Rain Dog into editing it, and all I have is her side of the story. Was she actually wrote my dad, Stephen M. Johnson. She wrote him. That was their first encounter. I don't know why they were talking to each other, but she wrote him this. Her introduction to herself is basically this incomprehensible, bipolar mania rant about Rain Dog, you know. And I was sort of like I was like, okay, I don't know this person. I don't care. You want me to edit your book, but you treat me like shit. I'm sorry. So no, there's no money involved. Anyway, I'm not going to spend any more time talking about her. So the good thing is that I also was not unaware that she didn't have permission to use the iconic cover with the beautiful
I'm not
and brilliant
not 100%
iris.
on that.
What?
I'm not 100%
Oh,
sure.
okay, okay.
My
But
memory has some holes in it.
it is
So
it is on
I'm
brand. Let me
not gonna
say,
make
it is
that
it's on
statement.
brand. So I just want to show the peoples. This was taken as a photo that was taken in 2009,
Right.
Mhm.
and the trailer was called the Long Long Trailer. It was used in the Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball movie. And that's the beautiful Iris Berry, who was nude except for black stiletto heels and a typewriter that was purportedly used by Allen Ginsberg and William S. Burroughs at the original Beat Hotel. And so I took this piece because Iris gave me permission. I re-edited it, so I got rid of all the solecisms and the incorrect punctuation. Renee was a teacher at LAUSD, but Anyway, so it's getting its proper, it's properly edited now. And so anyway, about so yeah, uh Iris, I know Richard, you and Iris go back a long ways. So how did you meet her?
Well, let's see. I met Iris. I think there was this bouncer who had the name of he was at various he went from club to club in Hollywood, and this guy's name was Duce because he was a big guy and he had his head shaved. Not that he was a fascist or anything, but
Yeah.
so but Duce was a friend of an ex girlfriend of mine.
Oh wow.
And so we, I knew Duce, and then Iris knew Duce, and then Iris was working as a bartender at Club Lingerie, and Duce, and I went there one night, and Duce was there, and he introduced me to people there, and it was the first time that I'd been there because I'd been living in New York City, and I was just back for the summer or something. I don't remember the exact circumstance, and he introduced me to Iris, and so we talked, and as we got to know each other from that point on, we had similar backgrounds in that her parents were also New Yorkers who moved to Los Angeles. My parents were New Yorkers who moved to Los Angeles. For a time, we went back and forth between Los Angeles and New York. She lived in the Valley. I lived in the Valley, and or grew up in the Valley. She grew up in the Valley. She wasn't living in the Valley at that time. So, having this similar background and similar taste and interest, we became friends. And you know, it's like it's been great knowing Iris and seeing her development and watching her ups and downs. I won't go into those. That's we let me put it this way. I don't know about you, Alex, and I know something about Puma, but I know that we all have a shady past, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have we had our wild party days, our drugging days, etc., which are behind us now.
Yeah.
You can do things like that in your youth, but as you grow older, your stamina it
Yeah.
disappears.
That
And
doesn't work so well. No.
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to make a change in your lifestyle, as they say now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had that also.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. And Mark
Mhm.
actually Mark actually said something I won't repeat about her. So, which I was kind of shocked by, but I won't repeat that. I love Iris dearly. I think she's a beautiful human being, and I wish her nothing but the best, and she's really kind person, That's all
Yeah.
I that's all I want to say.
Well, she's my good friend, and she always will be.
Yeah.
So, and my loyalty is entirely to Iris on
Yeah,
anything.
exactly, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. So actually, wow, I didn't, it's interesting. I want to talk about addiction. I want to talk about addiction. I want to talk about because that is the thread. We're talking about like Bela Lugosi's Dead was famously used in the film, the Tony Scott film, The Hunger, right? With that iconic opening scene. Sorry, Emily, it's the correct use of iconic. But the iconic opening scene, um, where, Peter Murphy's like, and the credits are rolling, David Bowie and Metro. I mean, it is just like it just gives me chills every single time, right? Catherine Deneuve, Susan Sarandon, and you know, and Peter Murphy is in the cage from the Ziggy Stardust video, and it's very much of an art movie,
Mhm.
I think, and beautiful. It's like what Tony Scott had a background in commercial, in advertising films, and so his sensibilities were, I think, perfectly aligned with having Peter Murphy and Bowie and Sarandon and Kathleen Deneuve and Magnuson, right? And the very, very memorable guest
and
appearance. Yes,
and and Willem Dafoe.
and Willem Dafoe. That's right. That was the I think that was what he played a bit part. He was in a
Yes,
in a,
he's
in
the
a
guy outside the phone booth who's waiting to use the phone and getting
yeah.
impatient.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, wow. Willem Dafoe. I had a very, very brief Facebook exchange where I wanted to interview him around Nosferatu. And I gave my whole spiel. It's like I've interviewed everybody. I've been doing this for 30 years, blah blah blah. Lemmy Kilmister, Claudio Simonetti, John Carpenter, et cetera, blah, blah, Caroline Munro in London, etc. And he just wrote um, two words. I um, I charge, and I'm like, wow. Okay, so when I'm at the Cannes Film Festival with my new film, you're not going to be invited to my after party. Anyway, so that's, but Willem, I mean, I love Willem Dafoe's work, but I charge. I've never paid for an interview. I think that's kind of like, what? You know,
Um, can I ask you something?
yeah, sure.
Are we ending at 4? Because we haven't read any poems yet.
Oh yeah, if you want to read some poems, I was just sort of rolling, coasting on the kind of the whatever, and things got a little dark there for a second there,
Mhm.
and especially since I did want to address the topic of directly. I was kind of building into that the topic of talking about drug addiction and certainly I mean you've been very forthcoming about that. You even have a poem about it or a song
I
about it.
I have
Yeah,
many poems about it, but
yeah,
I no longer do
yeah,
those poems anymore.
exactly,
I no longer
exactly.
write it because that's in the rearview mirror.
That's in the rear view mirror.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
I
did, yeah, I did.
not defined that way.
Yes, exactly. I would love for you and Richard to read your work right now. At the end of that, after you've and you can have as much time as you like. I'm not holding you to any kind of time frame. But after that, I'm going to read a very, very interesting piece that was written for me by Carrie Lee Chrome about being a junkie and about, shooting up, heroin in a Taco Bell restroom. And it's just one of the most scabrous, hilarious, dark, chilling, funny things I've ever read. So,
You know, I kind of go with what Richard Hell wrote in
uh-huh.
novel slash memoir, Go Now. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he said, the best thing that can happen when you're going out to cop drugs is that nothing happens.
right.
That's pretty much the life of a drug addict. The best you
Yeah,
can hope for is nothing.
yeah.
So,
Exactly. Wow. Richard Hell. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's great. Television. Wow. Cool. Far out. Yeah. So please grace us with your poetry, Puma.
oh, you want me to start?
Yeah. I should have asked, but now it's too late because
Should
No,
have
go
asked
ahead.
what?
I should have asked Richard, would you like to read or
No, no,
Which,
let Puma go. Go ahead.
okay, okay, okay.
okay, I'll do because I had assumed that there is a cutoff time. You're saying there's no cutoff time?
Right. Yeah. I didn't want to like sometimes these things go on for hours and I'm respectful of your time. So I wanted to keep it,
Okay, because I'm
you
gonna
know.
cut this down. I was gonna, I do full 10 minutes. I'm not gonna do full 2 minutes. I'm only gonna read 2 poems, okay?
Okay.
And and one of them is because we were talking about the Velvet Underground, but else that I just happened to have already chosen something related to that. But the first one is called Basement Bar. We had everything. On summer nights, we drank on the roof, not the glamorous rooftop parties you hear about today. I'm still never invited to those. Our rooftop was climbing 6 flights in a tenement building and a seventh to the roof. Usually the door was unlocked. It was the same roof that we used as Tar Beach in the summer. We could laugh and drink, and nobody could pour buckets of water on us like they did when we made noise on the stoop. The basement bars were in the after hours clubs, sometimes in apartments. I remember climbing stairs now and then, and for some clubs, you needed a membership ticket since everything was illegal and they got busted all the time. Paid somebody off and reopened in a couple of hours or a couple of days. We were just as exclusive as champagne goblets and hors d'oeuvres served on a silver tray, and just as happy with our Rheingold beer, Little Debbie cakes, and dime bags of pot, and taking a walk to the after hours clubs in the basement. When one was raided, another would open, and we'd stay until the sun rose, and then we'd go out for breakfast, a 99-cent special, eggs over easy. We had everything. Okay, and the second one is called After Hours, after a poem written by Lou Reed. And I, I had a little epigram of, if you close the door, the night could last forever, and I'll never have to see the day again. Favorite lyric sung by least favorite person, Mo Tucker of the Velvet Underground. She sure knew how to hold down a beat, though. Like Lou said, turn around and she's always there, or something like that. Now she's a rabid anti-vaxxing Trump supporter, but she sure knew how to hold it down. It's easy to turn this poem into an I remember, the light hitting your eyes like knives as you emerged from the dark, smoky club at 8 a.m., people heading off to work thinking they were the weird ones, only to join them years later when a different reality set in like a machete, cutting off the nights and bringing in the days. If we had only closed the door. And that was After Hours, written by Lou Reed in 1969.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Puma. Um, and now Richard Modiano.
Well, I'm going to stick with Puma's modality and do just two poems as well.
Okay.
And to keep on to keep sort of our theme going, this is called Poem for Zoe Tamerlis.
Yeah.
Is Zoe Tamerlis? I knew her from anarchist circles on the Lower East Side in the 1970s, and in those days she wrote one act plays, and she was also involved in fashion projects. And then, of course, she met Abel Ferrara, and then she made her signature movie Ms. 45. And yeah, so Poem for Zoe Tamerlis. Cats sleep across my heart when I see your full red lips, and the glassy water breaks with white sparks, scattering your words in all directions. Zoe, your crowned scalp with inky black hair, a halo of dawn over the urban river's skyline. Tonight you see through my eyes, Zoe of twilight ruby, and I sleep through your breath, Zoe of black leather, and I dream through your tattooed arms, Zoe of a desert of hawks, turn blue, and I walk in the palm of your Mount Meru, Zoe of obsidian in the coup d'etat, and I'm lost in your solar breasts, the flares made fertile, Zoe in the night of honeysuckle, Zoe of crystal palace, Zoe of Mongolian steppes covered with gold krugerrands, Zoe of boots under a red brick tenement where anarchists are plotting our liberation, Zoe of dolphin spume, Zoe of lava made helium, Zoe.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I love it. I love it.
And this poem is called Comrade. I like to read and write in coffee shops, old habit, escape from noisy lodgings of bygone days. I share the place with the gentrified locals, fixated on glowing screens if alone, yakking about what's cool if with others, talking about dreams of screenplays and auditions with the eagerness of youthful promise. They pay me no mind, the old fellow in threadbare clothes, scribbling in a pocket notebook with a fountain pen. The young barista, pierced, braided, tattooed, took the money and handed me a coffee. As we made the exchange, I said cheerily, "Thanks, comrade." Leaning in and glancing from side to side conspiratorially, the barista whispered back, "How did you know I was a communist?"
Nice. Um, a couple of thoughts that I had. The Zoe Tamerlis poem. First of all, Ms. 45 is one of my all-time favorite films and one of the most influential on my entire aesthetic, so for a number of reasons, as is Bad Lieutenant, right?
Which
The
she co-wrote, by
Which
the
she
way.
co-wrote. Yeah, yeah. This is an incredible film. First of all, see, I put out a book called Om Mahakali to the Goddess, and I'm always, you know, it's sort of like curating a museum exhibit. So I'll take things out, I'll put things in, and I would love to use that your poem, Richard, for that book, Omaha Kali to the Goddess, because truly it is a goddess poem.
Well, she was very charismatic and she always, was insightful in her comments. And and this was before she was, well known beyond the confines of the Lower East Side. And I said her hair was black. It was black then, and then it was blonde in Ms. 45, and then it was black again. So
Yeah.
I don't know what her real hair color is. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Also, there was a couple of things, and you probably know a lot more than certainly, than I do about poetic devices. And so rhetorical devices. Well, you use something that's very much it's an epic poem tag. In other words, like, Zoe of the blah blah blah, right? Which is
mhm,
something that Ginsberg used, but it goes back to the Homeric, right? It's a Homeric modality, right? What's
yeah.
that called? It's gonna drive me nuts.
Oh, I don't know the. I used to know that name, but I'm getting
Yeah.
old and I can't remember the way I used to.
Okay, cool.
So
Yeah.
I used to remember all of these poetic terms, prose,
Yeah.
and all the details of prosody, but
Yeah.
I've forgotten them.
Yeah, that's a it's just such an amazing poem. It gives me chills. That sort of, dumpty dumpty dump, and it's also got a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very Howell. It's very, Ginsberg. It's sort of, you know, it reminds me of those, you know, what's interesting. Speaking of Ginsberg, have you read the Samuel Beckett translation of Le Bateau Ivre by Rimbaud?
I haven't read Beckett's translation, no.
It is available if you just do a Google search. There's a Reddit group that has that. Also, if you could look at my Substack, the Small Bear Review, I also publish that because it's in the public domain now, and it's quite remarkable. If you read Beckett, Beckett doing Rimbaud, I believe that you'll see a lot of, certainly a lot of a connective tissue thread to Howell. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ginsberg had read Beckett on, doing Rimbaud. I think it's really interesting. You know, are you familiar with the work of Bakhtin?
Hmm.
Mikhail Bakhtin. Okay, so when he was talking about like the what's it called, dialogism, right? Where you have that kind of a conversation really over generations, over time, immense time, right? And there's kind of the devices, I always think about what was the first poetry like? What was the instance, the or the motivation? I mean, I think for a lot of us, it's just to impress girls, but I, but seriously, like, you know, going to war, um, traditions, rituals, right? And there's a kind of, and also praise of the numinous.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
Well,
it was very connected to prayer and to praise
yeah, right.
and
Prayer,
and to chanting.
yes, yeah, yeah. To chanting, to the rhythm, right? To the
mm.
To
the
the
kind
rhythm.
of thump, 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 thump.
And in this connection,
Yeah.
Puma is a master of that. She's an expert of that. If I don't know if you've heard her spoken word music piece that she mentioned earlier, "Under Tenement Skies." If you haven't, you should. I mean, it's a perfect marriage of music and speech, and
Hmm.
her voice and the musicians that she worked with on that, and she's worked with them for a while now. They all, they there's a dialectic happening,
Yeah.
and it's actually one of the very best of these that I've ever heard.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But
Wow.
I was thinking of Decimas, you know, like
Yeah.
from Puerto Rico, like the original hip hop, the original rap,
Hmm.
Nice.
original challenges were Decimas because they used to challenge one another with
Yeah, yeah, right.
rhymes in these verses. And then here they were in the South Bronx doing that in the 70s.
I wanted to ask both of you, did you know Pinheiro?
Yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I'm
Hmm.
Oh,
actually related to him.
wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. I love him. I
I
love him
can't
so
claim
much.
any accolades to who you happen to be related to, but
That's
his brother,
incredible.
his brother Eddie was my child's father, my daughter Juliet.
Wow.
And she years later, was he still alive? Yeah, no, he was dead by then. But when she was a senior in high school, she told me she wanted to be either a poet or a Marine because her reasoning being that if she was a Marine and when she was a senior in high school, we hadn't really seen any wartime for quite a
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
under the wall. So her reason was me that she hadn't done great in school. She kind of screwed up and she knew I didn't have a lot of money. So she believed the Marines would
Yeah.
send her to an excellent college, but she wouldn't be a Marine if she could get on the poetry circuit like in 3 months.
Oh,
And I said,
wow.
3 months is kind of quick to get on a poetry circuit. She
Yeah.
went straight to the New Eurekan Poets Cafe,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
was treated as New Eurekan royalty, and she
Nice.
was posting slams in the open room within 3 months of saying that. So she didn't become a Marine. So I can thank
Yeah.
Pinero.
Wow. That's incredible. Hey, Richard, so I wanted to ask you, I don't know, we probably talked about this on when we had you and Emily and Kara Morrison and et al. the last time, but you actually know Japanese, right?
Hmm.
I mean, you've uh and you're a Zen practitioner, if I'm
Well,
not
I'm not
mistaken.
really a Zen practitioner,
Okay,
no.
not in the Mark Olmsted sense, but you do know
No. No.
you do know Japanese. So could you tell me how Japanese poetics have influenced your work?
Well, it's basically Japanese poetry deals with the concrete and the material, and it's about um, uh, basically it's about ordinary things that happen, or it's sort of the exact opposite of the poem about Zoe Tamerlis, which was a flow of images that I thought the way that I wrote that poem is I thought of my feelings about Zoe, and then I was thinking about her, and I got all of these associations and I wrote them down. But Japanese poetry is more like the second poem that I read, Comrade, which is about a daily life experience. And I like to paraphrase second wave feminist who said the personal is political. And I like to say the personal is also poetical.
Nice.
And in order to turn your ordinary experiences into something that is meaningful to another person, you have to select the language that is true to the experience and at the same time is transmissible to other people.
Hmm.
And again, I Puma is a poet that excels at this, and and you don't have to know about the actual particulars of her real life to appreciate what she's writing about. Because the themes that she touches on, the emotions and so forth, they are universal and they're specific to a particular individual with that person's background, et cetera, their own responses and so on. But at the same time, you have to select the proper language that retains all of that, the truth of those experiences, and at the same time transmit that to the reader. And that's another thing that's what I'm trying to say is that the poems that Puma read here today, those are specific to her life, but at the same time, they're universal because she knows how to make them universal by selecting the right words and embodying those experiences, those emotions, and so on in language that resonates.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
would
So
There,
I would so going back to the
say,
original question about what has Japanese prosody done,
yeah.
it's given me a way of accessing language that resonates. So
And also it brings to mind T.S. Eliot and the objective correlative, right? So
mhm.
I mean, it's something with Japanese being almost like a I maybe I'm confusing it with Chinese. I don't want to go on, down that road, that primrose path, but that sort of a concentrated image, right? The image, concrete image, which can absorb. And there's a line in the Ellen Mabie poem, "Whiff of Wonder," right? There was sort of which actually contains the line, there's something in the collective paw, right? Where the paw is very is a it summons up this magnificent cosmic image of something numinous holding us all up, you know, containing us, containing the universe. I mean, it's magnificent, right? I don't know if that made any sense, but
Yeah.
I try to. And Puma, you were going to say something about that. Yeah.
No, no, that's no.
No, no, when Richard
Oh,
mentioned all of the songs, I was just going to tell you that Under Tenement Skies is available on Bandcamp and you can listen to it
Oh, cool. Yeah, I need
well.
to. I've been doing a little,
Yeah.
I've been doing a deep dive on your channel, and you've got so many great videos. Okay, so we're going a little over time. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna sort of wrap things up by reading this piece, and I think that you'll find it very, very interesting. So I'm gonna over and get this book. Where did I? It's usually in. I have this learning disability that's called dyscalculia, which Ellen maybe does as well. Which one of the weird symptoms is like you can hide things in plain sight from yourself. And anyway,
What is it called?
it's called dyscalculia.
This
Wow.
cow.
And Ellen actually has and in the anthology called Neurospicy, a defiantly different anthology, which was kind of like a uh a bookend to a collective paw, the anthology. available, on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and hardcover. And so she has a poem called Dyscalculia, literally. So very interesting. Um, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read a piece by Carrie Lee Crum, and this was written for this is an exclusive original prose piece that was written for us by Carrie Lee Crum. Little background: her she was the original member of the Runaways, even though she never played with the band. I think she did a oh here's a Lou Reed thing, right? So very, very early on, about 1975, she and the rest of the Runaways, Joan Jett, Sandy Ford, I mean, Sandy, was it Sandy something or other, Sandy West, Lita, uh, was Lita Ford, and Sherry Curry and Joan Jett went into the studio and they recorded a cover version of Rock and Roll by Lou Reed. you know, their lives were saved by rock and roll, right? And so Carrie has a very kind of weird flat flat voice. So I think she hollered in the background, and that was the last time that she was ever heard on a Runaways song. It was never released. Um, she was, there. I mean, if all you have to do is Google the horror that has been her life. She was, sexually assaulted by Rodney Bingenheimer and passed on to Kim Fowley, who also sexually abused her for, while she was living with him when she was 14 years old. She kind of quit, writing, and she never quit writing songs or poems or short stories or anything else, but she kind of she left, that scene and she became a journalist and etc. She has a monkey on her back, and I don't think people really know, the story. If they knew the true story of the Runaways, it's harrowing, it's chilling. Um, and she told me enough that I would be like, okay, well, I'm not going to reveal anything that, is in litigation right now. But I will read this piece that she wrote for me called Mutsi Tutsi. Aaron and I were shooting dope yesterday. She got her hit right away. I couldn't get mine, so she offered to hit me. The veins in my arms are trashed, so he was digging around in my foot trying to find a vein I had lost. The rig was partially filled with blood, and I was squirming around like a fish on a hook. If I didn't get the hit soon, the rig would clog and I would lose it. Hold still, she said, annoyed, positioning herself to get a better grip on me. Her shoe slipped off her foot. I looked down into the arch of her shoe. The label said Mootsie Tootsie. I focused on it, trying to ignore the pain. Mootsie Tootsie, I said grimly. What? Aaron said. I pointed to the shoe. Ow! Be still, she slapped at me. You gotta have faith. As she probed my vein idly like an old lady with knot thread sewing a quilt. She was high, having just got off and was nodding out with the needle in my foot while she was trying to hit me. I sighed loudly and poked her in the ribs. Aaron! What? She growled, drool collecting in the corner of her mouth. Pay attention. Blood squirted up in the syringe almost by accident, and she shot the dope in. Mootsie Tootsie, she announced. Aaron was my current running buddy. She had more scams than anybody I know, but she was also crazy as fuck from shooting coke. She just couldn't leave the coke alone. One day we got a bunch of dope and some coke and couldn't wait to get back to her place, so we decided to blast off in the bathroom of Taco Bell. Shooting up in a public place is hell on the nerves because you always got to watch out for other people. And if a line of people are waiting to get in the bathroom, forget it. It's always a bust, not a relaxing way to spend your high. If you try to hurry, you drop the dope or you drop the spoon on the ground, and then everybody knows what you're up to. You got to look people in the eye when you come out. Oh, hi. Don't mind me. I'm just shooting up. Most people are so square they don't even know what's going on, but it still makes me nervous. We get to Taco Bell, and Aaron makes a big production of getting in line, ordering some food, and flirting with the manager before asking for the restroom key. The last thing us jokers are thinking about is food, and flirting with the manager before asking for the restroom is food. Just being in the place is making me sick from the smell. My stomach is tying knots on itself, and sweat is collecting in my armpits. All I can think about is getting the dope into my system. That dope into my system. We go to the bathroom and throw all our shit on the back of the toilet and cook up. The smell of it hits my nose, and I feel a gag reflex come up in my throat. I'm starting to feel pretty sick. Always do right before I'm going to get off. I draw the dope up in the syringe, hold it up to the light to make sure there isn't any debris floating in there, suck a little off the top of it, and go sit in the corner. Aaron's on the toilet looking for a vein. I'm crouched down behind the door, tying off. I can't get my veins up to save my life. I never had them to start with, and now they're non existent, hiding behind layers of scar tissue. Finally, one pops up, and I slowly inject it, stopping every few seconds to re register and recheck that I still have it and not throw up at the same time. I untie and sit there and feel it hit the back of my neck, hoping to still feel the rush. We added a tiny amount of Coke to it so we could get a little boost to the hit. I didn't feel the rush anymore. I was strung out. But if you add the smallest bit of Coke, you could still get that feeling. I sit there and sigh. I'm not sweating anymore. I don't feel dirty and clammy like I need to climb out of my own skin. Erin gets hers, and the rush hits her, and she unties as well. She's feeling good and wants to do more. So she busies herself with dumping a bunch of Coke in the spoon and mixes it up with what's left over in the cotton. Are you sure you want to do all that? I ask. Doing a bunch of Coke can make you sick all over again, or at least make you feel like it, and then you got to shoot more dope to come down. Then you're out of dope, and the cycle starts all over again. Erin's only half listening. She draws it up, looks at the amount in the barrel, and says, I can't do all this. You want some? I don't like Coke, but at the moment I can't turn it down either. Don't worry, Erin says, we have more dope left. Drug addicts cannot save for a rainy day. I draw the other half of the Coke up and sit down and look for a vein. I'm relaxed. So I get the vein right away. I taste it and smell it before I feel it, and then I stand up and sit right back down. The traffic passing outside sounds like it's zinging along on rubber bands on a highway of metal. Holy shit, I croak and start crawling on the floor of the bathroom, my ear to the floor, listening to the sounds of humanity on Earth. Critters are scuttling underground and wailing in a high-speed death race. My heartbeat is sped up so fast I can feel it slamming in my stomach. Saliva is welling up in my throat and filling my mouth. Needles are prickling my armpits, and I'm regretting doing that damn Coke. Erin breathes deep and sits up as if an alarm bell has gone off, and only she can hear it. We have to hide the evidence, she rasps and draws the remainder of the cotton up into her syringe and turns the faucet on in the sink. The pipes groan and knock with a sputter blasting out of the sink. It sounds horrible. The onset of a massive cocaine rush is hard on the ears. Everything sounds as if the decibels have been cranked to 100. An angry herd of water demons are shrieking out to everyone that passes, there are people shooting drugs in the bathroom. Of course, nothing of the sort is happening. It just seems like the sound of the universe has been turned up. Paranoia has a fierce grip on Aaron. I have enough sense not to shoot pig quantities of cocaine. So I just sit on the floor and watch her. She is washing her hands at a breakneck speed, as if the velocity of her gestures will stop it. When she is done washing, she dries off the spoon with tissue and scrubs the soot off the back of the spoon to leave no trace and throws it in the toilet. She dumps her purse out on the floor and grabs all her syringes. She pulls water up through them and then bleach, 3 times each. She pops the caps off each one, inspects it momentarily, and the ones that are dull get the tips bent back and the caps put back on. The water is still zizzing out of the faucet, and my ears are clanging. My ears are ringing so hard the room seems as though it's tipping off its axis. The overhead light is brutal. Aaron unravels the toilet paper, wet swaths of it, and starts wiping down the back of the toilet, the surrounding walls, and the sink. She wipes the mirror and the floor and gets to work on the contents of her purse. She takes her cosmetic scissors and begins cutting up her stolen credit cards into very small pieces. She takes all her receipts and papers in her bag and cuts them up and makes a pile in the middle of the bathroom floor and sets fire to it with her lighter. Every time she does a super big blast of coke, which was often, she got so paranoid she immediately set about destroying whatever evidence she had on her person of anything remotely illegal. Once I saw her make a crack pipe out of a tampon. After she got done smoking a fat ass rock, she set the whole box of tampons on fire and threw it out the window on the freeway. The whole way home, she thought the police were following us and kept checking her rear view mirror and craning her head around. I was a nervous wreck and I didn't even smoke with her. The pile of paper is stinking up the bathroom. And Erin stops suddenly and jerks her head to the door. Sweat is pouring down her face. She points to the door and has her other finger to her lips. I can see her heart beating through her chest. She's so skinny. I can hear it too, or maybe it's my own heart. Her mouth forms the words, but no sounds come out. Did you hear that? I shake my head negative and become still. Not that I wasn't before. I shake my head lightly and make a face as if to say, no, there's no one there, and shift my weight to my other cheek. My ass was falling asleep. Her body relaxes and she goes back to her fire. When she stops again and grabs my arm, she stalks still, and her head is tilted slightly to the side in concentration. She drops down to her chest and puts her head to the floor, looking in the direction of the door, trying to see under it. The fire is smoking away, and I creep over to her side and try to see under it too. Her face is smudged with dirt, and her eyes are like saucers. It's the porcelain patrol. We know Charlie's out there. And, like tunnel rats, lay there listening, determined to keep our territory safe. After what seemed a safe amount of time, she turned her attention to the fire. The bathroom was getting too smoky, so Erin flipped up the lid of the toilet and tried to scoop up the fire with her sneaker. She got half the fire in there and looked at the sink for options. The water was still blasting out of the faucet. She filled her sneaker up with water and poured it over the fire till it died. Good work, I whispered. What else was I going to say? Her finger shot to her lips and her eyes darted to the door again. Nobody was out there, but I played along. I sat there and waited for her to come down, for the coke to sweat out of her system a little bit. Eventually, she put the rest of the fire pile into the toilet and wiped up the floor. She turned off the water in the sink and said, let's get out of here, and threw her stuff in her purse. I stood up, brushed myself off, and Erin flushed the toilet. She looked down into the toilet bowl. Evidence. She tried to flush it again. Nothing happened. She hoisted the top of the toilet off halfway, stuck her hand in there, and fiddled around. There was still no flush. She tossed her purse on the floor, rolls her sleeve up further, and starts tweaking on the toilet. I couldn't believe it. The pyromania was one thing, but now she has to start fucking with toilets. She's got her arm all down in there, and there's a little click. But again, no flush. And I got to stop right there. And so people have to buy the book. So that is Carrie Lee Crum, the songwriter of Waiting for the Night and Secrets in California Paradise. You've heard them. They're some of the most, you know, important song and influential songs ever to be written in rock and roll, and certainly inspired bands like the Go-Go's, the Riot Girl movement. I mean, the woman is she's also a queer icon as well, and certainly I have an enormous amount of respect for Carrie Lee Crum, and I hope for the best for her. So that's all I want to say about that. So now it comes the time where, whatever things that you would like to promote, your social media, your works in progress. Um, I'll start with you, Richard.
Well, I have a Substack. It's just Richard Modiano, and I write reviews and appreciations of other writers and artists that I like. And just sort of a side note, I got one of my subscribers said, "You never write anything critical," and it was neutral, so I didn't know if it was a complaint or an observation. And I answered back. I said, "Well, I write about what I like, not about what I hate."
Yeah.
And these days, I do that because it's very demoralizing. The whole zeitgeist of the United States is incredibly demoralizing, and even of the world. And as much as much as to maintain my own morale as the people that I write appreciations of. That's why I write about what I like and not about what I hate. You can find out. I mean, there's so much to hate that out there. I don't even go into it, but so that's what I'm doing. And then I'd also like to mention that a book that I edited for Punk Hostage Press, Love and Cigarettes by Nika Ray, is going to be published soon, and please keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. What was the name of the author?
Nika Ray, Puma knows her as well.
Okay,
Nico Ray.
cool. Okay.
Yes.
Could you hook me up with her? Because I want to, I love meeting new authors to me, and we have ongoing anthologies.
Well,
Well,
And
probably
she
Puma
wrote
could
a
do better.
memoir.
Puma knows
yeah.
her. What
Yeah, she wrote a memoir called Ray by Ray. She's the daughter of filmmaker Nicholas Ray.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yes,
wow.
Yeah.
That's
and was
amazing.
brought up in Hollywood. She's lived in New York for God, I don't know how many years. So we're very good friends.
That's
Well,
amazing.
along those lines, an iconic experience was when the first time that I met her, and the first time that Iris met her, her publisher. Uh, I said, "Let's all meet at Musso and Frank's, which is a legendary Hollywood restaurant where her father used to dine." So we had, speaking of iconic,
Yeah.
we had this iconic dinner at Musso and Frank's.
That's awesome. I love it. That's
Yeah.
great.
This is
Wow.
just Mark Hostage Press, actually.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you, Puma, what would you like
Uh,
to promote?
well, I am also promoting Substack. I think it's a very good platform for writers, and people do get to subscribe and to actually financially help writers because times are tough out there, and
Yeah,
my sources have dried up. And the reason I found Substack was I needed to find a way to stay to keep my sanity writing,
yeah.
because I was having major surgery and I was going to be home. So that's when I started writing, the
Wow,
Substack.
yeah,
So I mentioned the Bandcamp with our album. I don't have any new books coming out. If you're in New York City, we'll be doing another show at the 11th Street Bar November 4th. The people can contact me. Um, it, Easy enough to find me, I think.
yeah. I do need to mention, and I was just mentioning, I don't see this is a woman who had a very tragic life, and her legacy would be almost completely obliterated if it wasn't for me and my dear friend Michelle Fairchild, and I'd forgotten that I promised Michelle. Um, this is a woman who was, I consider, one of the major poets of our time, and nobody's ever heard of her before. Her name was Jordan Gallagher, and she was an educator. She worked with Kate Braverman. She edited Kate Braverman's Wonders of the West. They taught a class at UCLA and Cal State LA together, among other things. She was the inspiration for the Jordan Cochran character in the Val Kilmer vehicle, Real Genius. And she also wrote a book of poetry, which is out of print, called Riot on Venus. She's credibly, she also worked for the Holocaust Museum and was had a master's degree in history and taught at I believe Yale Divinity School. But she died tragically in 2020, the same year that our great mutual friend Joseph S. Pulver, the word fiction master, died. And she died of she was always told me that she was going to die of some rare Victorian disease. So she was obsessed with rare Victorian diseases. And she died of a fentanyl overdose, not intentionally, but it was very, very tragic. And so I miss her. I loved her dearly, and I'm honoring her by publishing her books in my books, you know. So the last thing I would like to do would be to read a short poem that she wrote called The Cocktail Hour. Um, and this is for I'm reading this for Michelle. This is called The Cocktail Hour by Jordan Gallagher. It's included in the Junk Merchants, Volume One, a literary tribute to William S. Burroughs, and this is the precursor to the final volume is coming out next week. Is the Junk Merchants, the director's cut, which will include Iris Berry, Richard Modiano, and Puma Perl in it as well. Um, the Cocktail Hour. It could be drawn and quartered on a black and yellow table, besides Gitans packages of neat cigarettes, or root beer, Vernor's bottles, and a knitted blue change purse from Munich. It could be tattooed the length of a tile on a beveled kitchen floor. This precision of sobriety, it is webbed, a frail tradition, a frail rendition, tried by the chess set, tried by the coffee black and strong and bitter, like an awakening. To this dawn I fold like damp origami left too long in the rain. It taints the old English 800 he doesn't pick up, and the stained form of a girl moving her hands in a blur who draws and draws with the dulled end of a pencil, its dumb leaded edge, tearing the light out of day. Jordan Gallagher, 1965 to 2020. And I'll leave you with that. So this has been very, very beautiful for me. Thank you so much. And we'll see you online. Okay?
Thank you. And I will just add one more little coincidence.
Yeah.
Iris called me in the middle of this.
Wow.
Your ears must, I texted her real quick, your ears must be burning. So
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
I'm back
Yeah.
now. Well, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard, very much for all your kind words. And thank you, Alex, for having me and for reading
Yeah. And
and
also
discussion. Yeah.
I also would like to invite both of you to two other anthologies that we're doing. These are both charity. I Believe in Pain authors, but these are charity. One is called A Collective Paw, an animal rights anthology, and that was actually the inception of Ellen. That's a phrase from her poem Whiff of Wonder, and all the proceeds are going to animal rights. You know, and if you have anything about animals, it doesn't necessarily. I mean, humans are animals, right? We're animals, so. Um, I would love to have. I noticed Richard's cat was, you know, um, was also a guest on it. What's your cat's name, Richard?
Cat's name is Chio.
Ch uh,
Chio after a woman Japanese poet.
oh, Chio. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so Chio. So I would love to have a poem from you, Richard, and you, Puma, on for Collective Paw. And we actually had the Pawsies Awards with Ron Whitehead. We had Emily Frank. We had Ellen Maybe and Nicole H. Six and Elias,
Yeah, I
my
heard
partner.
lots of
Yeah,
dog poems, yeah.
yeah. So the Pawsies. So
Okay.
um, and the other one is Riot Pink. It's a queer reader and resource guide. You don't need to identify as LGBT. It's for, our wonderful, um, you know, um, you know, uh, LGBT, friends, and basically the rights are under assault and this fascist fucking regime, and all we can do is sort of make a symbolic gesture when we can't like stand in front of the tanks. So this is for the Trevor Project to help, LGBT youth in crisis. And Ellen's
Okay, well, if
contributed.
you send an email,
I will
Yeah.
send you
Mhm.
both information about these
so I
these
probably, yeah,
initiatives, right?
going
Yeah,
over my brain talking here, so, yeah.
exactly. So, okay, lots of love and big squeezins, and I'll see you online. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Alex.
Bye,
Good
Thank
to see
bye.
thank
you.
you,
Bye
Richard.
to both
Thank
of
you,
you.
thank
Thank you.
you, thank you, Puma. Bye bye.